30 hours later now, we are up there searching, and clouds in the top of the mountains, and we're up and down. And as we go up these little draws, kind of just searching, we have the MX-10 camera, and we're looking out the windows, and we were making our own fog. The helicopter's making fog. So we'd go up one and come back down, and we couldn't go back up because now there's fog in there from us. So we're doing this up and down the mountain and all over, and now we're starting to get low on gas, and we're searching and searching and searching, and then one of the guys like, hey, crap, I see some skis.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Verticon Helicast and in partnership with Vertical Valor Magazine. In this two-part series, Jack Schonely and I record in person at Verticon 2025 in Dallas, Texas. The conversation explores the incredible operations of Two Bear Air Rescue as we interview Rob Cherot, who is a Two Bear Air Rescue pilot. In addition to Rob's work with Two Bear Air Rescue, he also flies for the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Agency. Two Bear Air Rescue, based near Whitefish, Montana, is dedicated to saving lives by providing top-tier aviation search and rescue capabilities across the Northwestern U.S. The program is fully funded by philanthropist Michael Goguen, ensuring it operates at no cost to taxpayers. Rob's a seasoned helicopter pilot whose journey is nothing short of inspiring. Rob's story begins with a passion for flight sparked at UND. Rob worked a career as a firefighter-paramedic in Montana before becoming a skilled professional pilot in the rugged mountain terrain of Montana and its surrounding states. Over the years, he's flown everything from animal surveys and fish stalking to rescue operations, all while balancing multiple roles and building invaluable skills along the way. Whether it's navigating extreme weather or managing traumatic incidents, these stories showcase the resilience and dedication of these skilled pilots. Join us as we explore the profound impact of aviation in preserving communities, protecting wildlife, and serving the public, all set against the stunning backdrop of Montana's rugged terrain. If you enjoy this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast, please leave us a review on the platform you use to listen to the Hangar Z Podcast. Your support helps grow our community and showcases inspiring folks like Rob. Your feedback truly makes a difference. Thank you to our sponsors, BLR Aerospace, CNC Technologies, and Anodyne Electronics Manufacturing.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Hey, welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Gray, coming to you from Verticon 2025. I said it right.
Yeah.
It's starting to become muscle memory. I'm going to say HAI and VAI and all these terms interchangeably for a while, but I got it right. So we're coming to you from Verticon in Dallas, and we get an opportunity to come across and see all the friends of the industry that we see maybe once a year, once every couple of years. So it's really cool being in here. We just had a podcast recording with Tony Weber, and during the course of the conversation, we had multiple people popping in and saying hi as we're recording, which is always really fun. Even canines.
We had dogs come in here.
Which is better than people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll have some fun at this recording. I want to thank Mike Reno and Linda Reno for Vertical Valor and the Vertical Helicast platform. I mean, we're in this booth. It's beautifully created by Vertical, and I'm so thankful because when this all started, it was a card table and a Chinese microphone and a laptop that was about 30 years old. It probably had 2 megabytes of memory, and here we are with all this equipment. So it's pretty cool. One of the things that has been kind of a reoccurring theme so far in this short, half a day of a conference so far is the people that we're running into that we've met elsewhere as a result of the podcast and, these other networking events. I'll just bring it up right now, the LAPD Aircrew School. Jack has taught at that for how many years now?
Gee, I don't even know. Since its inception, and it was a long time. It's a long time. We'll have to ask when we see Manny today. I'm sure we'll bump into Manny and ask him how many years, because his wife Debs is one that got it rolling. But it's been many, many years. A lot of people have come through that, including Rob, who we were just talking about. That was at the last one. It's just become kind of a staple of airborne law enforcement to attend that at some point. You attended it.
Yeah.
Jeff attended it.
Yep.
And so we're real proud of that.
So let's start with just talking about that. I guess before I want to introduce our guest, who has met Jack through the aircrew school, and we'll talk about the aircrew school here in a second. But I'm assuming you guys found out about the aircrew school through the podcast and through our interview with Manny.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
One of the TFOs set it up, and they said, it might have value for a pilot to go.
Yeah.
Manny thought it would, and
Yeah.
so we went down with the guys.
That's cool.
What'd you think?
I thought it was great. I think we're really unique in how we do our
Yes.
things, and we're not a big city law enforcement unit. We have a tiny bit of law enforcement component based on how we do our things, so it was great to see how everybody else does it. We'll be able to implement a little bit of things in our department, but it's going to be, most of it was not what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And
it
that's
was excellent.
And that's the goal of that.
Yeah, we're glad we went.
Yes.
It
Good.
was fantastic.
That makes me feel good, and Manny will appreciate that too. And
Yeah.
that's what the philosophy's always been, how they operate there is somewhat unique, and it's not, all of it isn't going to mean as much to every single person that attends. But if you can grab a few things that you can take back to your unit, man, that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And it's fun. And you get to, and you get some nice lunches, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fun to network and meet people, and there's lifelong friendships that come out of those classes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you came down for that.
Well, I'd like to properly introduce you. We've talked about you in reference, to, vaguely where you work, but Rob Cherot, right?
Cherot.
Still can't say it right, and I just asked you. You have a very unique agency that you work for, a company. Can you tell our listeners who you work for and a little bit about that? We'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of it later, but just give us a brief description of what you guys do and some of your other responsibilities.
Yeah, so my primary job, I work full-time for Two Bear Air Rescue in Montana there, and it's a really unique program. We're a nonprofit foundation that's 100% funded by one individual. So he pays all of our staff, aircraft, hangar, everything, to provide zero-cost search and rescue for, I don't want to say anybody who needs it, but the multiple state region kind of. And we don't really have we work with Idaho, Oregon, Washington, a little bit of Wyoming, and most of Montana. But it's really where the mountains are.
Yeah.
We mostly hoist, rescue, and search. Search is decreasing a lot. I think technology makes it harder to get lost.
Yeah.
Or harder to, easier to be be found.
People still find a way to do it, though, don't they?
Right. But it's also made it easier to call for help. Maybe when you might not have already needed the help yet.
A little Garmin InReach.
Yep. And the iPhones now have the satellite communication. So, basically we provide zero-cost search and rescue for a big area. And we kind of now have tried to define it more as like a 300-mile radius from where we are. Because, helicopters are slow. You start going past 300 miles to go hoist somebody. Yeah. There should be somebody else available that could do that. So it's just a mountainous region in those 4 states. And because of how we do the work as a public use aircraft, we have a partnership with the sheriff of our county. So he has operational control of the aircraft. Everything we do has to get dispatched through the Flathead County Sheriff's Office. And then, if we go to other states or counties, it's just basically a law enforcement mutual aid kind of thing where we go help them. So that's how we keep our public use status. Yeah. And, just that's zero charge for it.
And where are you based out of?
Kalispell, Montana.
Kalispell.
Right in the northwest corner by Glacier Park.
Yeah.
So that town's unique. A lot of people in my community in Southern California, we live in a mountain community in Southern California. And your city, your town, for some reason, has drawn a lot of people from my community to Kalispell. It's a beautiful area, but it's weird to me that this one particular place happens to be the magnet for people from my community, which is interesting. But aside from Two Bear, you talked about that as your primary source of employment. Where else are you working?
And then I fly for the state of Montana, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks.
Okay.
So that's primarily animal survey stuff. We fly with a biologist doing different projects. Survey and inventory is a bulk of what we do. They need to set hunting quotas and everything based on how many animals they think there are, and that number fluctuates quite a bit up and down just based on what kind of winter we have. The winter can be really hard on calf and fawns. Mm-hmm. So we'll have designated target areas that will always count in the winter, and then in the spring we're like, oh man, and it's not getting, we're not counting every animal, but survey areas that we count the same place all the time. And if it's a ratio, so we'll be, hey, out of 5,000 elk we counted, whatever there was, 30% was calves, and then we do it again in the spring right when green up starts, and then now we're like, oh crap, there's 15%. So winter was pretty hard on the calf crop, right? So it's, and that's all biologists. Like, I don't get into that. I'm interested in animals, but that's their deal.
Yeah, how cool.
But you learned a lot, though.
Oh yeah, no, I know good hunting spots anyway.
And so you guys do animal capture as well, right?
The state does a lot of animal capture. Most all of it's contracted.
Okay.
So we'll assist that, moving biologists and vets, because they're going to net or dart them. In the more timbered areas, it has to be with a dart. Mm-hmm. And regulations and stuff's moved, things progressed where now the juice they use, the roofie juice, I call it, they don't get to use as potent of stuff. Mm-hmm. So the animals don't just get roofied and fall down. They take a little, take several minutes. So to capture more animals to collar and do research on, they need to be productive. You're flying aircraft, so they're expensive. It's just the more productive you can be. So we'll, if we get a dart in one, then the capture crew can move to a different animal, and we'll just watch that animal where it goes to, because we have, we're not going to dart one and then chase the rest of the herd, try to get another dart in. You put a dart in an animal, you have to watch it till it goes down. It may be herded away from danger areas, because 3-5 minutes when a helicopter's hovering by you, the animal wants to leave. So
So are you guys ever flying the shooter or the capture crew?
No, we do have net gun and dart guns of our own. The actual net gunning and darting stuff is most always contracted out.
Okay.
Individual basis we'll do it. That's a unique job in its own, and those guys do that every day, all day. They're better at it.
Can you talk briefly about what that looks like? Your altitude when your shooter's out, and just what that kind of mission looks like from a pilot's perspective?
It depends what aircraft you're in, where the shooter would be, but it's a really low level. Like, putting a net on an animal is usually done, less than 50 feet away.
Wow.
So they'll kind of wait till the animals get where they need to be, and then dive down on them. And most of that's right outside the door of the aircraft.
That kind of flying's got to be a blast.
Yeah, it's zoomy, sporty flying, and then then you have those guys, they bring their own muggers, so they prefer to net all the time, because the way they bid that stuff with the contractors is by the animal, so they can put a net on you, jump out, tackle you, tie your legs together, do the biology stuff, take blood, put a collar on, look at your teeth, whatever they're doing, and untie you and let you go. And they can do that in just a couple minutes. But you put a dart in somebody, well, not somebody, but in an animal, and
hopefully you'll misfire and hit somebody.
5 minutes later,
sorry, bro.
5 minutes later is when the animal goes down and you can go work with it. So even though they kick and squirm when they're in the net, they'd rather do that, because they can probably do 5 to 1 for production.
Interesting.
You brought up muggers. Mugging is an interesting role. One of our guests did that as well, and she talked about getting kicked and all kinds of stuff on the animals when you're out mugging. Can you talk about what that job is and what that looks like?
I don't do it. But yeah, they'll put a net on, and then the helicopter will land just as soon as it can. Yeah. And a lot of those are just hover and jump out, tow in one skid kind of things in the mountains or trees. A lot of it isn't just land in the field next to it, but they'll bail out of the helicopter from 2 to 5, 6 feet in the air and jump out, run, and just tackle it. Get control of its legs. A lot of time they'll cover up its eyes. If their eyes are covered, they can't see. They don't know. They don't know where to kick. Their aim's not good, but it calms them down quite a bit.
Yeah. Wow. That's
a
wild job.
Oh yeah, no, those guys. You don't want to fight any one of those guys or girls. There's some women that do that.
Yeah,
they're pretty incredible.
That's a young person's job.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I'd fall out of the helicopter at 2 feet and I couldn't get up.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's interesting to talk to you. You're doing some very unique stuff on both sides of your employment. So I want to go back to that, but I do want to go back to the class that we were talking about, because again, it's come up multiple times during this conference in particular, and I like what the class does. I think it's very important. It's a unique class. I don't know if there's any other class that exists like that, especially not one that's free. So I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Jack, you taught this last class. It was a full class, and it was really neat to hear some of the feedback. Can you talk about the class and some of the feedback that we got as a result of that? Thank you to our sponsor, BLR Aerospace. BLR Aerospace's revolutionary fast fin system improves performance and enhances safety across various helicopter platforms. This cutting-edge aftermarket solution improves tail rotor effectiveness, stability, and payload capacity while reducing fuel consumption and pilot fatigue. Trusted globally, FastFin delivers unmatched control, efficiency, and reliabilities for diverse helicopter operations. Learn more at blraerospace.com.
Well, the course has been going on for years. It's evolved, obviously, but this last class was unique in that we had, Manny had so many people from agencies that had never come to it before, including yourself.
Oh, actually,
I mean, and he asked, what? How did you find out? Oh, Hangar Z Podcast, which was really, really cool for me to hear. I mean, Manny grabbed me and said, "Hey, look at this list," and I'm looking at it, and I've been teaching this for forever, and I said, I've never seen, half of these agencies. I've never even seen them here before, and he was very proud of the fact that that they had reached people that they hadn't reached before, and that the Hangar Z had a lot to do with that, which was really nice.
Yeah,
really nice. The class is always full. It's covers a wide variety of things. We were just talking about how it's the stuff that's covered. Some of it is not applicable to some people in the room, and other topics are applicable to everybody. It runs the gamut of information from air crews and particularly tactical flight officers in communication and tactics and techniques and safety and the how-tos from different organizations. Like SWAT comes in and talks, and somebody talks about mobile field force stuff. There's all sorts of topics, and it's a week long. It's free. That was a debate back in the day, and said no. If we charge, the money goes into the general fund. Why would we want to do that?
Yeah.
It's not going to benefit us. Let's make it free. And then it has sponsors that cover meals, and you get a breakfast and a lunch out of it each day. But the best thing is the networking. I mean, there's usually about 55 or 60 people in the class. There's about 50 or 60, and it fills the room. And they're from all over the country, sometimes all over the world.
Yeah.
Harold has brought the Dutch there. We've had Australians. Matt Stanton's been in the class. I mean, friends of ours from around the world have been in that course. So it continues. Manny does a great job. I think this year's his last one before retirement, and I highly recommend people to attend if they can. It fills up like that.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you haven't registered and you want to go, get in touch, because it's
quick.
It's gonna
Manny Dickerson, LAPD Air Support.
Yeah,
contact Manny and get your name on that list.
And you'll be teaching there again this year?
Yes, that's the plan. We talked the other day. We don't have the dates yet, but it'll be fall. It'll be fall, September, October.
Okay.
And he's working on that as we speak, and it'll be full.
Yeah.
It'll be full. So you got to contact Manny early.
Yeah. What I like about you guys going down there is, like you said, it's not really your mission profile doesn't do a lot of what was discussed in the class, but you guys do so many different things. And again, you work, under the sheriffs essentially. So there's a chance that you could be asked to do something in particular that you don't do all the time. Because you've gone to this class, you've thought through some of this stuff already, and you've got some perspective on, some of the stuff that you might be asked to do. We just talk about the first time you do something or think about something in a tactical situation shouldn't be the first time you're doing or thinking about something. You've already kind of worked through some of those steps, at least mentally at a bare minimum. So you guys did that. So I give you kudos for thinking outside the box and going.
It was good that we call our camera up, we call them TFOs. Went to that class, and we don't have TFOs.
Yeah,
they're not a tactical flight officer. We work with so many different agencies. It's not, we're not LAPD. We're not the Flathead County Sheriff's Office. We'll go help anybody, and occasionally we'll fly, the Border Patrol or the ATF, and all these people that we don't know, and we're not sworn officers or anything like that. So we don't know cop stuff really all that well. So we just kind of make it up, and most of the law enforcement stuff we do is really local to where we are. Because, if we go travel 300 miles, whatever's going on, it would be over anyway.
Yeah.
So, generally we pick up a little bit of warrant stuff and some police chase stuff and things like that. And this one was pretty timely. We wound up, they had a SWAT call. And so whenever they get a SWAT call, they usually call us. We can just fly overhead and provide overwatch and just say, hey, the guy ran in the woods. We're not saying, oh, hey, A team go to that corner, and we're not a tactical flight. We're not doing any tactics. We're just seeing what we see and telling them what's going on.
Giving your perspective on what you're seeing.
And so, about a month before, maybe, a nighttime call, a guy was shooting at his girlfriend, and then the sheriff's department went. And then they started shooting at their drone and shooting at, so they called us, and we were orbiting and we're flying around, and we have great video of the guy shooting at us. He had a laser on an AK. He's lasering us for, an hour and a half as we orbited and shooting at us, and we're capturing it on video. But then we're flying around in a circle in the dark. We're not cops. I don't think he's going to hit us, but I don't know if we should be way closer, way higher, way lower.
Do you remember how high you were and what your airspeeds were?
We have the MX-10. So the offset showed almost, like I was saying, about a consistent mile. Pretty close. And, altitude was varying a little bit. But, yeah, we were just making it up.
Yeah.
Hey, we're a mile away. We're moving.
Yeah, it's
We
tough.
turned all our lights off. That'll be hard to, it'd be difficult to hit us. But, honestly, we had no clue.
Sure.
And so, hey,
a little
awesome. We're going to L.A. next. They get shot at. We'll figure this out. And so that kind of stuff was good, but a lot of it is tactics and things like that. And if we started telling these cops what to do, they're not going to listen to us anyway.
Yeah.
So it was, we're just so different, and only maybe 5% is law enforcement missions that we do. So
yeah, one of our previous guests and someone that everyone hears every time they listen to the Hangar Z podcast is Kevin Means. When I took his class, he talked about a study that he did. And he showed through the study that aircraft that were above 500 feet AGL and traveling over, I believe it's 60 knots, there was no record that he could find of aircraft being intentionally hit with gunfire if you're, again, above 500 feet AGL and flying faster than 60 knots. I don't know if that's still a valid finding, but at the time it was. So, I think it's interesting. There's got to be a lot of luck in finding an aircraft and hitting an aircraft if you're within those parameters. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys probably were outside of that, but I do think it's an interesting thing to talk about.
Oh yeah, we didn't know. We're just flying around in the talking about like, hey, I think we're far enough away or two, and we got home when we were done, a day or two later, and we're like, okay, we found out what he was using for a rifle, and most of our crew, the rear crew, are all ex-military guys, bunch of kind of special operator kind of folks we have on staff, and so they're doing ballistics and stuff. Like, okay, well, he would have had to hold like 700 feet above the helicopter to hit us if we were stationary. So now, because we're moving 700 feet above or whatever, and how far do you have to lead it? Like, we probably had a greater risk of getting taken out by a Canadian goose
Yeah.
than getting shot, but
Canadian goose. I love it. That's funny.
Well, yeah, it's all good stuff to learn and talk about, because we do it so infrequently.
Right. Thinking back through the class that you attended, what were some of the courses or some of the things that you took away from that were beneficial or have been beneficial for you so far? The
containment portion of it. Like I said, we're not officers, and where we are is so rural and so few officers, these guys have a call and okay, we got containment and we've got, 10 cop cars in a circle around, the bad guy, and we've got one there within 10 minutes and then 2 more are going to be there within a half an hour. So, they always talk containment and stuff. And, honestly, we don't know. And we're like, I don't know if we've ever had containment, really.
Yeah.
That's
like
cool.
the big city guys get. So,
there's an attempt at least.
Yeah.
I'd always get frustrated when we'd launch for a suspect that ran, or like, was there a perimeter set? No, why are we going? And like the chances of us finding him are almost zero,
Right.
So I know you've got a thing or two to say about that.
I don't know anything about this topic. No, it's containment's, it's tough, and the more rural the area and the fewer the officers, the more difficult it is.
Right.
I mean, and sometimes it's impossible. There are times that it's impossible to do a containment, depending on where it is, how long it's been, and how many personnel you have. But if you're going to try and contain them, there are things that you can do. You think about, okay, he was running this direction this long ago. How far out ahead of him can we place this one unit that we have? Can we put them out there? And you think about those things, and it's stuff that maybe you didn't think about before. And then you get the class and you go, oh, we could end up in that situation, and we need to apply this information. Whether I've said this for years, whether you're doing perimeters on a nightly basis, once a year, or once in your career, you need to know something about them to make them effective, and so, hopefully you were able to draw some information that if you do get thrown into that, you can apply it and understand what they're doing and how they're doing it and help them, which is the whole idea.
And that's that, we kind of gained out of that, a lot of that. The difficulty for us is we don't work with them all the time,
right?
On it, and it's multiple agencies.
Sure.
So, we're not going to arrive overhead and start telling people where to go. Honestly, they won't listen.
Yeah.
It would take a lot of.
They might.
Yeah, but being the small portion of our job that we do that.
Yeah.
I realistically don't see us getting
Sure.
there.
Yeah.
And that's not our mission. Isn't law enforcement.
Right.
It's search and rescue. So
right.
When we can help, it's mostly just provide overwatch and say, hey,
Yeah.
the guy ran away over there.
Yeah,
that's
He's
cool.
got a giant dog in the backyard, kind of thing.
Yep. Well, let's go back in time, as Jack says.
Yes,
and talk about
time.
your early career. Tell us about where you grew up, how you grew up, and how you wound up pursuing or becoming interested in aviation, and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so long time ago, just like any other dumb kid, didn't know what I wanted to do. Got out of high school, convinced my folks, a year off would be good for me, where I could, find myself, ski, do what I needed to do. And then that year went by, and I thought that was pretty good living. I was going to keep doing it, and it kind of came down to, hey, either you're going to college or you're getting a job and leaving the house.
But ski bum is a job.
Come on,
I'm full-time employee.
So I'm like, maybe an airline pilot, commercial pilot, fly private jets, fly airlines. That'd be cool. Yeah. So went to University of North Dakota to their flight school, and wasn't in it a whole year and decided, man, I'm not an airline pilot. I don't want to do this, and kind of like more adventurous stuff. And so also was like, what would be easy? As a kid, I had it good. I wanted easy life. Yeah, what could I do that's easy? So I'm like, firemen, they got a pretty good schedule. And like to pick on cops. So I'm like, I'm smarter than a cop, so I can't be a cop, but certainly fireman would be good. So
you sleep all night, every night?
Yeah.
They play cards, don't they?
Yeah. So I was like, this is the life for me. So figuring, man, I'll have a better chance of being hired as a firefighter if I'm a paramedic. So then left University of North Dakota's flight program and went to Phoenix to paramedic school. Did that. Came home. When I left North Dakota, I had a private airplane license. That's all I had. So I was a pilot, but not much of one. Didn't have much time and no money. So got done with paramedic school, came home to our, Kalispell, our little town, and the only two places you can work as a paramedic are the fire department and the hospital. And they have a helicopter program there. That's actually a super cool program. And I got hired at both. So they're like, hey, firemen have lots of days off. We have lots of days off on the helicopter. I just do both.
Yeah.
So I did. And that was fantastic. After flying in the helicopter for a while, I can't,
Yeah.
Maybe flying is my deal, and I think it just has to be in a helicopter.
Yeah.
So that kind of got me hooked on flying again, and wound up picking the perfect wife. Her dad had a little airstrip and an airplane.
Oh.
He let me fly his Husky, and that worked out great. And all I did is talk about helicopters. He kind of got excited about helicopters, so he went out and bought a rotorway exec, one of the kits you put together.
Yeah.
He's like, well, if I'm going to learn about helicopters, let's build one. So
Dang.
he went out and bought a kit, and then we're tinkering on that. And then he, it's a long process. We've never done it before. We're not helicopter builders.
Yeah.
He was a land surveyor, so he's really busy in the summer. Winters were pretty slow, so it was kind of just a winter project. As we're going on it, I was looking in controller, and they used to come in a giant yellow, like a newspaper, how they'd come in the mail, and thumbing through there, and here's another rotorway for sale for cheaper than the initial kit was, and it's already built. So I'm like, oh man, it'd be so much easier to build this one if we could look and say, oh, that's what they did. Go over here and and do that. So my wife let me get a loan against our house, and I split it with a doctor. I'd sit in the ER talking to doctors about stuff. One of the ER docs, when I'd be at the hospital on the helicopter, one of the ER doctors had built a homemade airplane and thought it was cool. And he's like, oh man, if you ever do another helicopter, I'll buy it and you can help me build it. And then I found the one that was already built. So he bought half, I bought half.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks to our sponsor, AEM, a leading manufacturer of trusted special mission avionics for law enforcement, aerial firefighting, and utility operators. Visit aem-corp.com and learn how AEM's digital communication and loudspeaker systems, avionics consoles, radios, and specialty audio products can support your most demanding missions.
So we had two of these silly things at the house and learned how to fly in those. And then it's a weird series of events. My father-in-law had a best friend that had an FBO. His son passed away in an aircraft accident in Alaska. So he ended up buying the FBO from him to run. He's like, hey, you grieve your kid thing. And if you want it back, I'll buy it back. You can have it back. But, go take time and do your thing. So then now he's got an FBO, and they had a little flight school at the FBO. It had some Schweitzers, and so I had access to bigger, going into a Schweitzer 300 is a step up into a bigger, all these big aircraft. So I'm like, I get to fly some Schweitzer stuff. And then both of us, he and I, we're like, helicopters are cool, but how can a guy afford to fly even cooler ones, ones that don't have pistons? And so then he wound up buying a Schweitzer 333, the turbine Schweitzer, and through his surveying company put a LiDAR sensor on it to fly LiDAR and map stuff. So
genius.
So yeah, it was perfect. Like I said, I married the right girl, not because of her dad, but there was definitely perks.
Yeah.
And so realistically, I was flying kind of commercial work in a turbine helicopter at 300 hours. I had no business doing it, but it was a business, and why not do it?
Yeah.
Sure.
So did that, and then that evolved from the 333 to a 520 and the NOTAR, because we were doing a bunch of stuff in the mountains, and it just wasn't good enough. And so got busy enough, kids and doing things. I quit the hospital as a flight medic, so I didn't have time. So I was still a fireman and then doing my thing, flying whenever I could. And, we were mapping. We were pretty busy. So did that for, continue the rest of my career. Kind of then thinking, man, now I'm getting stuff figured out. I'm not financially responsible, but I understand at the end of a 20-year career, there's a pension. So if I can hold out, stay here for 20 years, and then, hopefully have the experience when I'm done to go get a flying job. And then lucked out. And, 6 or 7 years before my retirement, by accident, I got hired at the state flying wildlife stuff.
By accident. I love it. How cool.
I wasn't looking for a job. They were the chief pilot, who's still my boss. He's here. He was in town. He's like, man, he had a guy in town that flew for Alert at, the helicopter program at the hospital that was flying for him on his days off. And he was complaining. He says, man, this is too much flying. I don't, a job and a half is good, but 2 jobs is too much. So you got to hire somebody else. And just happened to be in a random buddy's helicopter when they both walked through the door, thinking about, man, we got to find a pilot. And
there's a
buddy,
pilot.
Hey, you're a pilot. You want a job?
Yeah, he's like, hey, you're a pilot. You want a job? And so, right place at the right time.
Geez.
So started flying an OH-58 for them. So they had the old military surplus ones, a 1033 program deal. Flying those and learning the animal stuff. Fish stocking is a blast. That's probably my favorite. Putting fish in high mountain lakes.
Talk about that for a little bit, because I've seen videos, I think, on your social media, and it looks cool.
Yeah, it's I enjoy it. It's peaceful. The state stocks fish in a lot of the high mountain lakes, and so we built internal fish tanks. They go in the back seat. It depends what aircraft you're in. Like now we're in an A-Star, but we've had them in the 58s and the 500 and the A-Star. And you just fill them up with fish. They have 4 tanks per side, so you have 8 tanks. So in one trip, you can put fish in 8 lakes, or you can put all of them in one lake, or any combination in between. It doesn't matter. It just depends on the amount of fish they're putting in. And that's also biology stuff. I don't guess say, hey, I think it'd be cool if we had, they're like, oh, this fish needs, 13,000 fish and this one needs 600.
Yeah.
So I get my little dry erase. We have a kitty etch sketch kind of weird thing, dry erase board, and I'll land at the fish hatchery in the grass and they'll dump fish in and they'll give me the name of the lake where I'm going and do my little route, come back, get another load.
How cool.
It's awesome.
It's like fighting fire, but you're dropping fish.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And how do they drop out? I mean, is it and you control that as the pilot?
Yep. So we have a homemade contraption, and there's a little solenoid that opens a trap door, and you just arm tank number 3 because you're dropping that one, and fly over, push the button. We on the 58s, and we're looking for them. If you know anybody has A-Star fixed floats, we need a pair.
Okay.
But we had military floats for the OH-58s, and we could land on the water and just dribble them in, fly away. And we would do some gill netting jobs with the floats on, land on the lake, hover around and set gill nets for them to take fish samples and then land back on the lake and collect them up from the floats.
Wow.
Which that's some of the most fun work you could ever do.
Bet.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just drop the fish. And that, California, I know, drops fish out of a King Air. So
wow.
I don't know how slow a King Air can go.
I don't know
I
either.
imagine they're dropping them at 100 miles an hour.
Can you imagine that
Probably.
fish? It's like, whoa.
And
ride.
they're also probably not as low as we get. So in the helicopter, generally we're pretty high altitude lakes. If you could drive a vehicle there, they'd take the fish in a truck and dump them out of a hose out of a fish tank. So it's all high mountain stuff, and generally I'm not going to stop over the water in a single engine helicopter and dribble a fish out without floats on. So
Yeah.
keep forward airspeed and low, but I'm 10 or 15 knots and 5 feet off the water and drop the fish. I usually spin back around and look, see how many are wiggling or upside down. But
do you keep a fishing pole in the helicopter?
I do. Just
cool.
For it's survival gear.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's we figure I don't know that we have a statistic on how many survive, but I would think in the very high 90s.
Yeah.
I think California, out of their king area, they think they do 80% survival rate or something. These are make believe numbers, not facts, but it's something like that. And so
wow,
it's
that's cool.
It's super cool. That's probably my favorite part of that job.
One of the most unique missions that I think we've ever talked about. Not only is the actually thing you're doing cool, but considering where you fly, probably the most beautiful place in the world.
Oh yeah.
You talk about being peaceful. You're in the mountains, you're in the wilderness. There's very few, if any, people where you're doing it. You're flying at. Are you with a partner during these flights, or you're solo?
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is rescue. Visit contest.verticalhelicast.com to enter the buzzword.
Do it all alone. Usually we're fairly heavy and high, and we honestly have to wait till after July usually to do the fish, because there's still ice on those high lakes.
Oh yeah.
I'll go to some lakes and they're kind of on the north side, and like, oh man, there's a little hole that I got to find and hit to drop the fish through the hole in the ice.
Wow. How cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Any questions on that? Because it's fascinating.
It's really interesting. Really interesting. So that's all over Montana, or do you go other places to do that too?
No, that's working for, I'm an employee of the state Fish, Wildlife,
so
and Parks.
You could go all over the sate doing that.
Yep.
But mostly in the mountain lakes.
Yeah. Yep.
Which are closer to you in Kalispell, right?
Yep.
I mean,
so I'll go from the Canadian border south down to Missoula, and then over in the Cabinet Mountains and the Whitefish range. Hundreds of lakes every year.
Yep.
Can you talk about the terrain? I mean, I think people can kind of envision what the terrain's like flying, but also the airspace considerations that you may or may not have in the area.
Yeah, it's Montana. We don't have airspace. We have Class D airspace around, a 5-mile radius around the local airport in Kalispell. And then there's a Tursa around an Air Force Base in Great Falls on the other side of the mountain. We don't have to deal with airspace or really talking to there's only half a dozen towered airports in the state, so it's not
pretty quiet
Alaska
radio.
or the Wild West, but weekends, and when on a sunny, nice, warm weekend in the morning, you hear a lot of traffic, people getting their little airplanes out and doing things. But no, it's not busy. It's just mountains.
Yeah.
In the mountains, 10,000 feet.
Wow. When you're out there flying, do you ever run across other aircraft doing whatever they're doing up in the same area you're working in?
A little bit. There are a few backcountry strips. The little backcountry guys like to go land on and stuff. So weekends are good for those. And there's a little bit of tour activity, very, very little, but we fly around in Glacier Park. Like we'll put fish in the park and around, and a lot of the animal surveys wind up in the park, especially the grizzly bear stuff. So, there are a few airplanes flying around high doing tours in the park, but realistically, there's
no surprises that you've encountered. Like, oh, I didn't expect anybody, and there's someone right there.
No, not.
That's cool.
Not really.
Yeah. Wow.
And doing the animal survey or even the fish stocking, we're flying really low. Mm-hmm. I'll kind of hug really low over the trees to get down into the lake because, if you're up high, and some of the lakes we stock are surprisingly small and big tall trees around them. So I've kind of got to get down in a hole and back up and out. Yeah. So it's a start low and then you have to go down forever or auto the thing into the water and then try, come back up. So.
Right. Wow. And you're currently flying an A-Star?
Operating for the state. Yeah.
Okay. So it's provided you some more power and
way better. And with the A-Star, the fisheries biologists or technicians, sometimes they'll come on a fish run, if it's an early one and it's not hot yet.
Oh, cool.
Because it's they can see where their fish are going.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
It's really interesting.
Well, thinking over the course of your career, as a fireman, as a flight medic, now working for Two Bear, when you think about the things that you've done, I know as a fireman over 20 years, you were a part of a lot of different incidents. But can you think back over that time and come up with one incident that was really impactful that you were a part of, either, like I said, as a flight medic, a fireman, or now with what you're doing at Two Bear?
Impactful, and I had a early in my career call as a fireman. We get to see dead people all the time, which isn't good, but it's part it's part of the deal. And I've only been maybe in the job a couple of years, and was a paramedic in an agency that had very few paramedics. So I had to be in the, when we're on the ambulance, in the back of the ambulance, and just had a call one night, a motor vehicle accident, and a child that had its pretty bad trauma, had missing some face and stuff like that, and not doing very well at all. The partner I was with, because we were short-staffed, and this was an old captain, ready to retire, and never would be on the ambulance, and just sat in the chair at the office or got in the fire truck. So he was on the ambulance with me, just by necessity, and it's a horrible deal. And he got in the back, and I'm doing my thing, and I needed help, and he just locked up. Like he did, he's like, holy shit, I'm looking at oops.
No, you're good.
Yeah. But he's like, yeah, I'm looking at a kid dying, and it's horrible. And he just kind of vapor locked, just stood there, and I'm like, hey, I need this, need that, and nothing. And that, that's one I can never forget. Just because I needed help, wasn't getting help. It wasn't his fault, and kids aren't supposed to die anyway. Yeah. So that's probably the one main one I remember is that's just horrible.
Those are,
and
I feel like the kid stuff's always the hardest.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Yeah, old guys are supposed to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not kids though.
Nope.
And,
nope. So it's that had an impact. I don't know what kind of an impact it had on me, really, but we did the critical stress incident debriefing stuff afterwards, and it not mandatory. This is 20 something years ago. It wasn't that stuff wasn't a big deal back then. Nope. It was just whatever, go back.
Get back to work.
Go back to work.
Yeah.
And the hospital, because it wound up being multiple agencies and, several dead people, whatever the deal was. And the hospital offered it. We didn't have anything like that at the fire department. The hospital offered it. And so I went to take the captain. And I'm like, come on, let's go. Because I'm like, man, he needed it. He couldn't move. I think we wound up actually having somebody else drive the ambulance in because he just whatever happened, he was done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, and I was like, oh, I'm tough, whatever, and I'm confident in my ability. I did, the kid didn't make it, but I'm like, I did the right thing. I didn't screw up, and still it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, this guy needs it.
Yeah.
Went to it. I'm like, hey, you gotta go. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go or whatever. And then he didn't show up. And I went, so I sat through it, and then I fell apart, and I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah.
I didn't think I needed it, but
right,
but must have or something. So that that was a big impact.
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com.
Yeah, I think it highlights the necessity for mental health, right?
Yeah.
And just the ongoing checkups, because like you said, you didn't realize how it impacted you, and
right
until you got into the conversation and you realize, holy cow, whether it's this one by itself or maybe things that had built up to that point.
Yeah.
And same for that captain, right? He'd probably been a part of so many things, and he got to a point where this is the last thing that he could absorb, and he was done.
Yeah, he was done, and he didn't show up, so I don't, and it was still way early and all that kind of stuff anyway. So I don't know that I did a whole lot to help him. I thought I was the better person than the big guy. But like, hey, come on, man, let's go to this.
Yeah,
that's all you can do.
Because he needed it, but then probably he needed less than I did. Who knows? But but it was
I think the stigma's changed for the better, right? Like
absolutely.
20 years ago, people didn't want to be seen going anywhere near
Right.
mental health professionals.
Oh yeah.
So he's late in his career, and so he's probably the mindset like, I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
You know, even though he more than anybody needed that help.
May have, yeah.
You know, and I'm very thankful for how far we've come, and there's a long ways to go, but we've come a long ways on the mental
definitely.
health side of things, and we talk about this a lot. It's interesting that it's come up in this conversation. The more we can talk about it, the less stigma that surrounds the need to do that, and the ongoing checkups. The better off we are as an industry, you know. And we just interviewed Tony Weber, and he's retiring after 42 years. He's happy and healthy, and you don't do that unless you've taken care of yourself over the course of your career. So I love that you brought that up. And you said, I don't know how it impacted me, but I think that was it. I mean, it was highlighting the importance of mental health or at an early point in your career.
Yeah, and so that's when their two bear stuff. You know, I think. I was fortunate for having a career doing that first. So I understand how stuff works. You know, I know, I think a lot of the guys that get into it, pilots or you know, rear crew, I guess we're pretty unique in what we do. So mostly pilots and even cops that are kind of doing this kind of work without the medical knowledge. I do think there's a belief in their minds that, man, I could save everybody. Mm-hmm. Which pushes them a little farther down the road on, you know, maybe they're making the right decisions or not. You know, at least I saw and learned, I'm like, you know, you can't save everybody. And, you know, I'm not going to hurt you for that, because that's probably not going to work out anyway. So that was good.
Yeah, it's good to have that understanding. I mean, and the ER is probably the best example of that. I mean, whether it's doctors, nurses, paramedics, anybody in that ER, you have to learn pretty early on that you're not going to save everybody.
Right. Yeah, do a good job, try hard.
You do your best. And, you do your best, and then but if you have that unrealistic expectation that you can save everybody, boy, those are going to get to you. I mean, the reality is that's not going to happen, and it's going to hurt you more probably.
Yeah,
I would think.
And I think the biggest thing is make you take bigger risks.
Yeah. I got to go the extra mile.
Like, oh boy, if we don't pull through the mountains in the snowstorm in the dark, that kid's probably going to die. I'm like, well, if he's probably going to die, he's probably going to die anyway, and probably I don't want the three of us in this aircraft to die.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yep.
It's a weird balance, but you got to figure out.
Yeah, and it influences like you said, it influences decision making for sure.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we're human; we make bad decisions based off those emotions.
Yeah.
Instead of being realistic and going, hey, listen, I want to get there, you want to get there, but we cannot do this. Yeah. We have to say no to this. We have to turn around. We have to land now.
Yeah.
You know, and
exactly.
It hurts. And you wanna, but it's part of risk assessment and part of the greater good. You know, taking care of yourself and your crew is important as well.
Yep,
it's tough.
You talked about weather and you know some of the considerations that surround that. You know, there's extreme weather obviously in Montana. Can you talk about? I mean, you grew up flying there. You grew up there, but you grew up flying there. Can you talk about what it's like to fly in the elements of Montana and how that affects your mission set?
Yeah, a huge one is lack of weather reporting, and then accuracy of that reporting.
Oh, interesting.
You know, when you do get it, the FAA is putting out more and more webcams, which the FAA could put out one on every corner. That would be the ticket.
Yeah.
Because just such great distance from one town to the next or whatever, or you're crossing a mountain range to the other side. You know, they can't forecast really good in the mountains. And so you're looking at this town on this side of the mountains and one on the other side of the mountains. And, you know, that's
nothing
like,
in between.
It's VFR here and it's VFR there, but you look up and you can't see the mountains.
Yeah.
So,
are they putting them in good spots for you?
They are good spots for the typical airplane guys.
Right.
You know, I've got some great ideas for mountain locations that would help us, you know, just kind of, you know, low pass routes that we take from one side of the mountains to the other. But it's, they're doing a good job and they're putting more and more out.
So then you can look at those and say, well, Kalispell's looking good, but we're going here. I can look, there's two cameras between A and B. you can look at them and make some decisions.
Yeah.
Is it just the visual, or does it give you temperature? Or
some of them will give you temperature, wind.
Cool.
Things
So it gives
like
you a
that.
little bit more information.
Yeah.
Nice.
And yeah, it's it's the mountains, and weather changes fast in the mountains
yeah.
and stuff. So
Yeah. A couple summers ago, I did a bike ride up in most of it was in Montana, and the first day we were in Eureka to start.
Okay.
Just north of you.
yeah,
And it was pouring. I mean, it was sheets of rain. And the guy that was dropping us off is an ex-sheriff from down in California. He lives in Big Fork, right by you too. And he said, "Relax, you're in Montana. Give it 15 miles or 15 minutes." And we're like, "Okay, Adam." And sure enough, we went in and ate. 15 minutes later, we come out, blue sky.
Yeah.
I mean, blue sky, and everything is soaking wet and everything. But it was, and we experienced that over and over the next 20 days. That's exactly what happens in Montana. Don't get discouraged about a little rain, because it's going to change in a couple minutes,
Yeah.
But the extremes, that's the thing that was amazing to me. I mean, it went from really extreme rain to extreme clear in minutes. It was incredible to watch. And the higher up in the mountains we went over the Red Meadows, and up above Whitefish, went over to Pole Bridge. Yeah. That first day, Eureka to Pole Bridge was our first day. That's some serious mountains up there, and it was just fascinating. We learned a lot about weather, and it was two out of the three were pilots, and the other was a nurse that was doing this. But the two pilots learned a lot about weather on that trip. Yeah, in Montana, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then our other kind of issue is the distance we go.
Yes.
We respond into Oregon, so there's a lot of different little sets of mountains to cross go into Oregon. And
up there near Joseph, you go over there.
Yeah.
The Oregon Alps. That's what they call them.
Oh, really?
The Oregon Alps is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous. It's just the northeast corner of Oregon near Baker City, and Joseph is right outside. Incredible place.
Yeah,
I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
And those mountains they're
mountains,
the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, rugged and unforgiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's hard. It's just hard to know. It's good over there. It's good here, and, or doable. And then a lot of times we'll get part way. Try, can't get through this pass. Go all the way down the river around and try another pass. Can't get through it. You just got to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The winter is interesting. I've only been to Montana in the winter once. Went skiing at Big Sky.
Was it June or July?
That's good. That's a Montana response right there.
But man, it was cold. The coldest I've ever been in my entire life. Skiing at Big Sky. So talk about flying in those cold temperatures. What that does to the machine. Some of the considerations you have to put in place for the aircraft itself. I'm sure you're keeping it hangared, until you're going to use it.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
Yeah, we have a hangar where we're at. We keep it hangared pretty much every mission we go on, even if it's a long one. We're back home in the hangar at night. Occasionally we get stuck away from home in places and have to stay outside. We don't carry our wheels around with us, so then the aircraft will be outside. There's very, very few and far between where we get stuck, not in a hangar. The biggest thing is the guys in the back. They open the doors to hoist and everything, and the wind gets on the back of my neck, makes my back of my neck cold. And then I start to get hot because I'm all bundled up, and I've got the heat blasting for them, but they're cold, and I start to get hot. So, it's a little tough game. I've got it pretty good in the front seat, obviously.
Yeah.
Not standing outside in 20 below zero weather on the skid underneath
the hoist operator's like, I'm glad you're hot. I'm freaking freezing my butt off.
Yeah. So we carry these blanket, the little hand warmer things that you open up and they get hot. We've got blankets that are made out of that whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And just because you pick up a guy that's out in that elements, they come into the aircraft pretty cold a lot. So, that's the best we can do is warm them up with the heat blanket like that and the heater. But the poor guys, we bring it up to Goodrich or on board now every year. We're like, hey, how come you guys don't make a heated hoist pendant?
Yeah.
Because those, their hands will get so cold, especially if you have to do a few hoists, because you can't have gigantic mittens on,
Right.
Yeah.
and operate the switch, in and out on the cable, and I'll start to feel the helicopter jerk a little bit, and hey, what's going on back there? But they don't know or realize, they're not just smoothly controlling the cable, just because their hands are so cold.
Yeah.
Every snowmobile, motorcycle,
Yeah.
everything's got heated grips.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me like a no-brainer that
Yeah.
they could, it's got power to it. They could just make that
Yeah.
thing heated, and that'd be a game
I
changer
think
for those guys.
we have a business idea here.
you go.
And we bring it up every year, like, hey, we got this great idea, and and everybody's like, oh, that is a great idea, and then next year, like, hey, where's our heated?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we forgot.
It's in the round file somewhere.
Yeah.
What kind of we've talked about this with the Canadians, and it was a great conversation. I'm reading your
You
mind,
are.
John. What kind of kit do you take with your emergency kit where you get in the mountains and now you have a significant issue that you have to put it on the deck and you're not going to be taken back off again? Now you got to be prepared for that. How do you prepare for that, for equipment wise and personal kind of equipment wise for that possibility?
Yeah, in my little, I have a helmet bag. It's kind of a bigger helmet bag,
Yeah.
and I keep a pair of, puffy coat, and I got puffy pants. So I have a puffy coat and puffy pants. We've got enough of those heat blankets, so like if we're stuck somewhere, everybody could open up one of those hot pack blankets and have a warm blanket. A pretty small survival kit that we keep in the aircraft all year round.
Yeah.
But each guy's usually got pretty good clothing on them to deal with that. But we don't have a super big aircraft, and we're looking to cut weight wherever we can
Yeah.
too.
Sure.
So,
Any food issues? You bring some stuff or no?
we actually one of our rear air crew was a Coast Guard rescue swimmer.
Yep.
And I didn't realize home economics was a huge part of the rescue swimmer program, but
Wow.
he's our tactical tailor. He's got a sewing machine.
Yeah.
So he sews us all kinds of little projects, and we have a nice snack bar that hangs over the back of the pilot seat with waters and snacks. 'Cause, some of our
Cool. So you
some of
have-
our missions can be an 8-hour-long
Sure,
trip.
just-
Wow.
We're going to go fly for 2.5, 3
Without
hours.
having an
boys.
emergency, you
Right?
need
yeah.
that.
We'll have to get gas, and we'll eat airport snacks
cookies.
or FBO snacks.
Cookies
but,
my favorite.
But it's also rural Montana, so there's not. Most of the airports we go will be self-serve.
Yeah.
And nobody's around. There's no stuff. So
Sure.
we keep a like a little baby backseat snack bar
That's good.
thing in there that one
good.
of the guys sewed for us.
That's cool. So when we go find their aircraft to put a sticker on it, we can leave a sticker and get a snack.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Grab a water, some granola bars, fruit snacks.
That's good.
That's so cool.
A reward
Yeah.
for putting a sticker.
Yeah.
In our conversations, multiple people have talked about getting or being put in a position where they're having to defend themselves or get away from a bear. With that in mind, do you guys carry any firearms or any way to protect yourselves from a grizzly or something similar?
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com.
Thanks to our sponsor, AEM, a leading manufacturer of trusted special mission avionics for law enforcement, aerial firefighting, and utility operators. Visit aem-corp.com and learn how AEM's digital communication and loudspeaker systems, avionics consoles, radios, and specialty audio products can support your most demanding missions. Thank you to our sponsor, BLR Aerospace. BLR Aerospace's revolutionary fast fin system improves performance and enhances safety across various helicopter platforms. This cutting-edge aftermarket solution improves tail rotor effectiveness, stability, and payload capacity while reducing fuel consumption and pilot fatigue. Trusted globally, FastFin delivers unmatched control, efficiency, and reliabilities for diverse helicopter operations. Learn more at blraerospace.com. And that wraps up this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. We hope you enjoyed learning about the incredible work of Tuba Air Rescue and the inspiring journey of Rob Cherot, a pilot dedicated to saving lives across Montana and the Northwestern U.S. From rescue missions to wildlife surveys, Rob's stories highlight the vital role of aviation in community safety and conservation. A huge thank you to Rob for sharing his experiences and to all of you for tuning in. If you're interested in hearing more stories from the rotorcraft community, be sure to check out the Vertical Helicast podcast platform. It's packed with incredible interviews and insights that celebrate the innovation, dedication, and adventures of those in the rotorcraft community. Check it out at verticalhelicast.com. Also, if you enjoyed this conversation at Hangar Z Podcast, we'd love to hear your feedback. Please take a moment to leave us a review on the platform you use to listen. Your support helps us build our community and highlights inspiring members from our community like Rob's. Whether you're tuning on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform, your feedback makes a big difference. Cheers.